Welcome to the Deputy Minister for International Affairs, Mr. Tae-sik Yoon.
Greetings from Korea, everyone. Today, I'm very happy to share Korea's initiative for digital agriculture and its strong commitment to promoting digital innovation in agriculture globally. Last July, Korea announced a key national agenda called the Korean New Deal, containing two main pillars, the Digital New Deal and the Green New Deal, with the aim to transform Korea into a digital and green economy. The agriculture industry is one of the most important sectors for the Korean New Deal in that we can foster a sustainable future, develop new growth drivers, and ensure food security through digitalization of agriculture. In this context, Korea is pushing toward greater tech innovation in agriculture, focusing on three areas. First, smart farm. We are fully committed to expanding smart farms and modernizing farming facilities through R&D investment and the development of a new smart farm model. Second, smart leaders. Given the importance of nurturing talented young farmers to lead a digital agricultural era, the government is sparing no effort to provide updated education and training for future leaders. Third, big data ecosystem. We are now establishing a cloud-based data platform to enhance data utilization, thereby developing a big data ecosystem for smart agriculture. Korea is also actively engaged in supporting the global digital agriculture agenda in solid partnership with the World Bank. For instance, over the past 2 years, Korea has supported the regional flagship study, Scaling Up Disruptive Agricultural Technologies in Africa, through the Korea World Bank Partnership Facility. The study's findings currently serve as building blocks for active consultations with Kenya and Uganda. In addition, Korea has recently approved funding for green and digital technical cooperation project in 23 countries through the Korea Green Growth Trust Fund. Through these pilots, we hope to share Korea's experience and contribute to furthering digital agriculture in those countries. Going forward, recognizing the enormous potential of digital agriculture, the Korean government will continue to expand the funding of the facilities in those areas at the World Bank and support tech innovation in agriculture around the world. Thank you.
My name is Professor Hamadi Boga. I'm the Principal Secretary in charge of Crops Development and Agricultural Research in the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives in Kenya. We are implementing a transformational strategy in the Ministry of Agriculture, which seeks to transform the lives of 8.8 million smallholder farmers, which represent about 4.4 million households. Because of the challenges in the sector, we have prioritized digitization. So in our strategy, we have a pillar which is digitization of agriculture in Kenya. There are a number of initiatives that we have put to push our agricultural transformation to be supported by digital tools. Some of the tools that we have deployed is a big data platform, which is funded through the World Bank program, the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project. We have also changed our fertilizer subsidy program into a smart subsidy program, which is anchored on an e-voucher. This program is already running, impacting about 200,000 farmers who are farming various commodities, mostly smallholder farmers. And together with the World Bank, of course, we had an initiative of reaching 1 million farmers using digital tools, disruptive technologies. And this has meant linking agri-tech companies, startups, with good ideas, linking them to counties. These are the sub-regional governments where they would be able to interact and solve specific problems. And Kenya is a leader in digitization. I think 25% of the digital solutions in the sector of agriculture come from Kenya when you look at the African landscape. and already just interacting with some of the developers, we have seen over 125 digital apps that have been developed to support farmers with one problem or the other. And so all this is anchored in our digitization of agriculture strategy, which we are running and implementing together with our development partners. Thank you very much.
We hit our final section and our final conversation, which is about the public sector. Fascinating how we've left it to the end of the program. Let's see what our panel have to say about that. Hello, Martine. Hello, Maximo. Good to see you. Martine, explain who you are. Introduce yourself to our global audience.
Hi, Femi. Very good to see you. Very pleased to be part of this panel. My name is Martien van Nieuwkoop. I'm the Global Director for Agriculture and Food at the World Bank. And in that capacity, I oversee the bank's engagement on this agenda.
Good to see you. And Maximo, welcome to the conversation. Introduce yourself to our global audience.
Hi, a pleasure to see you. My name is Maximo Torero. I am the Chief Economist of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations.
Gentlemen, I want you to finish the sentence. Our panel is called The Public Sector's Role in Maximizing Efficiency, Equity, and Sustainability of Digital Agriculture. If you could fill in the blank, what is the public sector's role? How would you finish that sentence, Martine?
Well, for me, there are about 500 million farmers in the world. I mean, many are smallholder farmers living in remote rural areas. So I think there's a very important role for the public sector to make sure that those 500 million farmers do not end up on the wrong side of the digital divide, and actually make sure, that conditions are in place. That those farmers can fully benefit from the huge potential of digital technologies has to offer.
Maximo, fill in that blank. The public sector role is?
No, the public sector role is to level the field so that we can get access and reduce the digital divide. The last thing you want is that digitalization will increase concentration and exclusion. What you want is a digitalization that will be inclusive and create a more competitive market so that you have better access to these technologies.
Gentlemen, you're very welcome to debate me, but I would like to propose that the private sector is way ahead of the public sector when it comes to DigiAgri. Martine?
Well, I think they're way ahead in developing, the technologies. But at the same time, I think there's an important role, for the public sector, to kind of, to promote data portability, to make sure that, the data is fair. What the government needs to make sure that data is fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable.
Is that happening right now? Yeah, Maximo, go ahead.
No. The point that I want to make, so in economics, there is a concept called natural monopoly, which basically what it says that you need to do significant investments, fixed investments for these technologies to operate. And digital technologies require a network, require broadband. And if the private sector was far ahead and they could do it, why they didn't do it? Why we have the digital divide? That means that for them, it still is not profitable. So they have a state-of-the-art technology, but it doesn't mean that they will be able to close these digital divide gaps. And for sure, once you close the gap, then the issue is, okay, how we compete. And that's what Martin was saying. There are regulations that are needed to have this, avoid this specific investment. So if a company enters because of the natural monopoly position and have control over the core network, then you want interoperability. You want other companies to be able to join in and compete in a fair basis and not to give this capacity of monopoly to one company. So in that sense, the government has a lot of roles to play. Regulation, creating this environment to attract this investment, can be PPP, public-private partnerships, it can be concessions, but there is a big investment of the core network that needs to be in place, especially in the areas which are far away and where most of these smallholder farmers are.
And also another area would be, for the public sector, to kind of, safeguard farmers' data privacy, security, and ownership. That is not necessarily guaranteed if you just leave it up to the private sector. So in that respect, also legal and regulatory framework. I mean, should be make sure that actually the users actually trust the system. No?
So we're talking here about best practices from the government's perspective. Let's talk about technical applications, Maximo. Give us some examples.
No, there are many technical applications. The idea of digital technologies, again, they are just a mean to do something. They are not the solution of the problem, but this mean is very cost effective. And for example, I can use it to distribute in a cost effective way information to farmers. If farmers have access to cellular phones, we can easily, very cheaply, distribute information to them. I just have to build an Excel sheet, the phone numbers, put what I want to transfer to them, and I send the message to them. Now, of course, that assumes that they have access. No? I can also use more sophisticated things like blockchains, for example, to do traceability, to assure that they are complying with the standards so that they can also trade, and not only in the local, but also in the regional markets or international. I can use technologies also to accelerate access to finance, because I can have applications with the score systems informations in it. And I can also give them information on extension. There is a lot of work now going on extension through digital devices, and also on ways in which we can give real-time support to them. So they can take a picture of the problem, send it up to the cloud, and then experts can respond to them and give a solution to them.
Conversations convened by the World Bank. The audience always want to know, well, what is the World Bank doing in this area? Martine.
Yes, the World Bank actually is, supporting this agenda in several ways. And one we already discussed. It would be to invest in digital connectivity and all the infrastructure, particularly in rural and remote areas and lagging regions. I mean, to link farmers, to the network. Another area would, to kind of support countries' investment in I would say, non-digital enabling factors which are critical to the development of thriving ag-tech ecosystems, including new forms of public goods and institutions to connect high-impact innovations with data and use cases, including, for instance, agriculture observatories or weather and climate data. Another area that we're focusing on is the support, for the development of innovation ecosystems and platforms at the country level, based on, establishing creative partnerships between the public and the private sector to connect ag-tech startups, for instance, technology and agribusiness companies, financial institutions, and farmers' organizations. Also, we are actively engaging on concerns to promote global and national learning platforms to enable countries to learn from each other, as well as to benefit from global innovations, for instance, to the bank's Open Learning Campus learning program on digital agriculture. So those are a few examples, Femi, that we're engaging on, and the demand actually is pretty significant, showing a lot of interest of our clients actually to engage on this agenda.
Maximo, if I were going to ask you to be super candid about the challenges, the barriers for public sector success in digital agriculture, if you were going to say number one barrier is this, what would this be?
So, when we talk about digital technologies, we talk about basically three things: connectivity, capabilities, and content. And I think one of the major barriers we have, because for connectivity, although we have a significant digital divide, especially between rural and urban within countries, that can be resolved. The World Bank can play a role, and other IFIs can play a role. But for me, the most complex one is the capabilities, because that's education. And if you don't have those capabilities, then it's very difficult that farmers and rural people, which are older generations, and they are in most of the cases, they don't read and write. It's very difficult to use these technologies. And of course, innovation can provide videos and ways to do it. But at the end of the line, they don't have this capability. So for me, one of the biggest constraints is capabilities. The second one, if I have to continue talking of constraints, is that this is a sector which is oligopolistic for sure. It's very few companies can operate and bring the services. It's not a sector that you have perfect competition. And for that, you require institutions, what we call complements. No, you require institutions and governance. and the government can start building the regulatory agencies, but the companies will always have more capacity to bring these people out of the government, and therefore has more control. So, and that has happened in Latin America. Beautiful regulatory agencies were set up, then the big companies came in and captured them. So I think we need to leapfrog. We need to learn from where it has worked, how, and try to help governments to minimize those risks.
One more thought, Martin, and I'm plagiarizing your thought here, and that is COVID-19, our global pandemic. Where does that factor into this conversation?
Excellent question. So what you see is that because of all the lockdowns that were kind of put in place because of COVID-19, it has actually kind of exposed, the vulnerabilities of the supply chains. So suddenly urban markets couldn't be supplied. So you saw an interesting and worrisome kind of increase in food insecurity on the one hand, going hand in hand with increases in food loss and waste. So there's a lot of interest now in building back better, supply chains and making sure that they are resilient. And of course, digital applications, can actually play a very important role to better connecting producers to consumers. So that's definitely an area of great interest, and making the applications of digital agriculture technologies, even more attractive and important than we thought that it might be the case before COVID-19.
Gentlemen, thank you for your thoughts and your expertise. Appreciate you both.